Something's changed in West Texas. The air's heavier, the stakes are higher, and the oil's not the only thing burning. Landman is back, and this time, Demi Moore and Sam Elliott are running the show. In Season 2, Episode 1, Taylor Sheridan turns up the heat, and what starts as a power play quickly becomes a war for survival. Secrets rise, loyalties snap, and one wrong move could bury everyone. This isn't the Landman we remember. It's darker, deadlier, and in the hands of Demi and Sam, it's about to explode. The episode opens beneath a blood-orange Texas sunrise, that unmistakable Sheridan tone, quiet, heavy, and full of dread, the kind of morning where the sky looks like it's holding its breath before something breaks. A lone truck moves through the dusty expanse, headlights slicing through the haze. Inside sits Tommy Norris, Billy Bob Thornton, the man who built a fortune from the ground up, and in doing so, buried a good part of his soul in it. The landscape mirrors him, stripped, raw, and aching. Oil rigs rise like metal skeletons in the distance, moaning under the weight of years of labor and greed. Tommy drives slowly, cigarette burning down between his fingers, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. The radio crackles MexOil under investigation for fraud and environmental cover-ups. The words land heavy. For a moment, his jaw tightens, but his eyes don't flinch. He's been waiting for this, maybe even deserving it. Sheridan's camera lingers on him longer than usual. The silence isn't empty. It's suffocating. This isn't just a man heading to work. It's a man driving straight toward the reckoning he's avoided for years. We cut to the oil field. Massive derricks silhouetted against the sun. Workers move like shadows through the dust, unaware that their world is about to collapse. The sound design here is masterful. Creaking metal, distant thunder, and that faint whine of wind through the rigs. It feels like nature itself is warning them, the calm before the burn. Tommy steps out of the truck. Boots crunching against dry earth, he looks over the rigs, his kingdom, but there's no pride left in his eyes, only regret. The once loyal crew barely acknowledges him. Whispers follow wherever he walks. They've heard the news. MexOil's fall from grace means everyone's job is on the line. Inside the foreman's shack, the tension thickens. A younger engineer, Demi Barnes Alley Larder, confronts him quietly. They're saying the company buried safety reports, Tommy, that we knew the wells were leaking. He doesn't deny it. He just lights another cigarette. Doesn't matter who knew, he mutters. It's who gets blamed. That's Sheridan's brilliance. No heroes, just survivors trying to hold on to something while everything burns down around them. As the morning stretches into day, Tommy walks through the drilling yard one last time. A rig worker calls out, "Boss, we still pumping?" Without breaking stride, he says, "For now." His voice cracks slightly. It's not command anymore. It's surrender. The final shot of the opening act is cinematic perfection. Tommy stands by his truck. The wind kicking up dust around him. Behind him, the rigs keep groaning, relentless, monstrous, and indifferent. The sky darkens with an oncoming storm, and we hear that subtle Sheridan score, low strings, echoing steel. This is how Landman Season 2 begins, not with a bang, but with the quiet tension of a world about to implode. And a man who knows he can't stop it. The camera cuts from the stormy oil fields to the shimmering skyline of Houston. Glass towers rise like monuments to ambition, and at their heart stands MexOil headquarters, polished, sterile, and full of secrets. Inside, the air is colder than the marble floors. Everyone's whispering about one thing. Monty Miller is dead. The company's future, and its billions, now hang in the balance. Then, the elevator doors slide open, and Cammy Miller, Demi Moore, makes her entrance. The sound of her heels against the marble is sharp, deliberate, like a warning shot. She's dressed in a black suit that says power, not mourning. No tears, no weakness, just precision. The camera pans up slowly, Sheridan's way of saying, "This is not the same woman you remember." When she steps into the boardroom, the atmosphere shifts instantly. The suits around the table, men who once nodded to Monty with rehearsed smiles, now avert their eyes. They don't know how to read her. Is she broken, or is she about to break them? Cammy doesn't sit right away. She lets the silence stretch. It's her first power play, and it works. When she finally speaks, her voice is calm, measured, but laced with steel. Monty built this company on risk. I plan to build it on results. A junior executive clears his throat, trying to challenge her. "Mrs. Miller, with respect, the board will want reassurance that your transition into leadership won't disrupt investor confidence." Without missing a beat, Cammy leans forward, her tone deadly soft. "The only difference between me and my husband is," she pauses, locking eyes with him, "I mean it." The room goes dead silent. The man sinks into his chair. Sheridan gives us a close-up of her face. No triumph. No smirk. Just control. That's her weapon. She doesn't dominate through noise. She dominates through presence. What follows is a masterclass in political warfare. Cammy begins rearranging the company's hierarchy before anyone realizes what's happening. She replaces Monty's old allies with her own people. Signs off on a media statement that subtly rewrites the narrative. Monty's legacy fades. Hers begins. Every move is calculated, and every word is chosen to make one thing clear. She's not the grieving widow. She's the new king. Outside the boardroom, rumors fly through the corridors. She's taking over. She's cutting deals. She's not done. Sheridan uses montage here, the sound of clicking heels, pen strokes on contracts, and the reflection of flames from the oil fields dancing across the glass. Walls of her office dot by the end of the episode's first act. Cammy stands alone, overlooking the Houston skyline. The city glows beneath her, but her reflection in the glass looks almost ghostly, as if power has already begun to hollow her out. Her final words to her assistant seal the scene. Tell them MexOil isn't under new management. It's under better management. And just like that, the queen rises and the game begins. As the power shifts in Houston, the dust in West Texas grows heavier, the weight of decay settling over everything Tommy Norris built. The episode shifts back to him, driving through what used to be his empire. Miles of rusting pipes, sagging fences, and pumps that haven't groaned in weeks. The once bustling oil fields are ghost towns now, swallowed by silence and wind. Sheridan captures it beautifully. Wide shots of the dying rigs, framed like tombstones against a setting sun. Tommy pulls up to one of his old sites, Rig 14, the one that started it all. But it's not his anymore. The gate is chained shut, plastered with red tape and federal warning signs, hazardous waste containment, restricted access. He stands there for a long moment, hands on the chain, as if touching it could take him back. The camera lingers on his face, a man watching his life reduced to rubble and liability. Inside, a few workers still move around, collecting tools and equipment, their voices low and nervous. When Tommy walks in, they fall silent. He's not the boss anymore, he's a ghost haunting the wreckage. One of the men, Eli, an old hand who's been with him for decades, finally speaks. They're saying you knew, boss, about the leaks, about the numbers. Tommy doesn't look at him, he just keeps staring at the oil-stained ground, the place where millions once flowed like lifeblood. A deep sigh escapes him. No words, no defense, because deep down, he did know. He knew the shortcuts, the buried reports, the environmental breaches, all brushed aside to keep the wells pumping. What he didn't know was how heavy that truth would feel when it all came back around. Sheridan builds this scene with painful precision. No dramatic music. No shouting. Just the slow burn of regret. Tommy walks deeper into the field, stepping over puddles of oil-slicked water reflecting the dying light. The camera pans behind him as he stops in the center of it all, surrounded by metal giants that used to obey his will. Now they creak and moan, half dead like they're mourning him too. He looks up at one of the rigs as the lights begin to flicker, a faulty generator sputtering its last breath. The low hum fades, one bulb at a time, until the entire field goes dark. The sound of the wind swallows everything. Sheridan uses that silence like a gut punch, a man losing not just his business, but his purpose. In the distance, a thunderstorm brews, lightning flashing across the horizon, echoing the chaos that's closing in. Tommy stands motionless, the last silhouette against the dying rigs, his hat shadowing the grief on his face. This isn't the fall of a tycoon, it's an execution by consequence. The oil that once made him untouchable has turned toxic, poisoning everything it touched. As the final light dies, Tommy mutters to himself, almost inaudible, "Guess the well finally ran dry." And with that, the screen cuts to black. The empire of oil, power, and pride reduced to nothing but dust and memory. Monty Miller may be dead, but in episode 1, he is everywhere. His presence lingers like a cold draft through every corner of Cammy's world. Especially inside the sprawling Miller mansion, Sheridan shoots the house like a mausoleum, dim hallways, heavy shadows, and walls lined with reminders of the man who once controlled half of Texas. The opening shot of this chapter is stunning. Cammy walks through the foyer in silence. Her heels echo on the marble, but the house itself feels mute, suffocated by the weight of Monty's legacy. Photos of him dominate every surface. Monty shaking hands with senators. Monty beside oil rigs. Monty holding trophies from the petroleum board. This isn't a home. It's a shrine to a man who demanded loyalty, power, and obedience from everyone unlucky enough to orbit him. But Cammy is done orbiting, in the study. Stacks of Monty's old files, contracts, and ledgers cover the desk. They're meticulously organized the way he used to keep them, categorized, color-coded, airtight. Cammy stares at them for a long moment, her face unreadable. Then she begins pulling them apart, page by page, binder by binder, not frantically, but calmly. Deliberately, she carries an armful toward the stone fireplace, where a fire already crackles low. Her voice is barely a whisper as she tosses the first folder into the flames. "You built it wrong." It's one of the most intimate and chilling lines in the episode. Sheridan zooms in on her face, illuminated by the firelight. This isn't revenge. This is liberation and reinvention. As the flames consume Monty's documents, the camera cuts to close-ups of numbers and signatures curling into ash. These aren't just business files, they're relics of corruption, cover-ups, and buried crimes. Cammy isn't just cleaning house. She's erasing Monty's story to make room for her own. But the fire raises more questions than it answers. Rumors ripple through the episode like quiet, poisonous threads. Monty's death, officially ruled an accident, begins to feel suspicious. Workers whisper. Lawyers avoid eye contact. One board member mentions Monty wasn't himself before he died. Another comments that the autopsy was fact-checked. Sheridan doesn't confirm anything, but the hints are sharp enough to cut with. Someone wanted Monty gone. Someone benefited. And Cammy's sudden rise to power only adds fuel to the speculation. The most powerful scene comes halfway through the chapter. Cammy sits alone at Monty's old desk, in his old leather chair, the throne he guarded with his life. On the wall behind her hangs a massive portrait of Monty, painted to make him look mythic, almost presidential. Cammy signs her first official document as CEO. A restructuring order that dismantles Monty's trusted departments. The pen glides smoothly across the page. Her hand doesn't shake. The camera slowly zooms in, her face unreadable, the firelight reflecting in her eyes. Then Sheridan cuts to the portrait. Monty's stern gaze looks down at her, but she doesn't look back. It's the most symbolic moment in episode 1. Cammy Miller is no longer standing in Monty's shadow. She's standing over it, and whatever secrets Monty left behind, she's ready to use them or burn them. Midway through Landman Season 2, Episode 1, the story shifts gears, slowing down just long enough to let us breathe the Texas dust before tightening its emotional grip. And that's when he appears. Sam Elliott as Raymond Norris. The father Tommy's spent most of his adult life trying to forget. Sheridan gives his introduction. The kind of reverence usually reserved for legends. The camera pans across a stretch of land so wide it looks endless, the morning light hitting every blade of sunburned grass. A herd of cattle moves slowly across the horizon, and there he is, Raymond Norris. Riding tall on a chestnut horse, his hat low, his eyes steady. He doesn't need dialogue to make an impact. His presence alone tells a story. Every line in his weathered face carries years of hard work, pride, and disappointment. This is a man who never left the land, who kept his word when everyone else sold theirs. His ranch looks battered but alive, a mirror opposite of Tommy's decaying empire. Sheridan uses this contrast beautifully. Where Tommy built power from corruption, Raymond built survival from honesty. When Tommy's truck rolls up the long dirt road, the tone shifts. The sound of tires on gravel cuts through the quiet. Raymond dismounts, staring at the vehicle with a mixture of disbelief and resentment. For a moment, neither moves. You can practically feel the history between them, the silence of too many things left unsaid. Tommy steps out, looking smaller than we've ever seen him. He's not the sharp, confident oilman here. He's just a son coming home with the weight of failure in his eyes. Their first exchange is pure Sheridan brilliance. Tommy, I need your help. Raymond, that's funny. You didn't need it when you were burying the family name. It's a simple line, but it lands like a hammer. Raymond doesn't yell. He doesn't need to. His disappointment cuts deeper than any anger could. The two men circle each other emotionally, like cowboys waiting to draw. Tommy tries to explain that things got out of control, that he's trying to clean it up, but Raymond isn't buying it. You can't wash off what you poured into the ground, he says, referring not just to oil spills, but to the moral rot Tommy's been living with. Sheridan lets the conversation breathe, lingering on close-ups and silence. The space between the words becomes its own battlefield. We learn just enough to know this estrangement runs deep. Raymond lost more than a son when Tommy left. He lost the family name, the legacy he fought to preserve. Before Tommy leaves, Raymond finally says, "You're not here for help. You're here for forgiveness." And that's the one thing I don't trade. Tommy doesn't respond. He just nods, climbs back into his truck, and drives away as the dust settles behind him. Raymond turns toward the horizon, a man bound to the land, watching his past drive off once again. It's classic Sheridan storytelling, two generations bound by blood, divided by pride, and haunted by the same soil that raised them. The middle act of Landman Season 2, Episode 1, tightens the emotional vice around every character, dragging the story from personal guilt into generational warfare. The sins of the past are no longer buried, they're surfacing through the cracks in the Texas soil. It starts with whispers. A headline flashes across the news: MexOil under fire for illegally acquired land titles. The moment Cammy Miller Demi Moore reads it, her eyes narrow. It's not just bad press, it's personal. She calls for a full audit of MexOil's property portfolio, determined to find out which pieces of her empire are under threat. What she discovers turns the entire episode on its head. One section of MexOil's most profitable drilling site, land that produces millions in oil revenue every year, sits on disputed property. The original owner, Raymond Norris, Tommy's father, the same land Tommy once swore his family didn't need, now holds the key to MexOil's survival. Cammy, never one to flinch at confrontation, sends a team of corporate lawyers and surveyors to Raymond's ranch to negotiate a settlement. But Raymond Norris isn't a man who negotiates with suits. When her team arrives, he's already waiting by the gate, leaning on his fence post with that signature Sam Elliott stillness, hat low, jaw set, eyes burning like the Texas sun. "You tell that lady in the city," he says quietly, "that land's got more blood than oil in it. You dig too deep, you'll find out who's." It's a line that lands like a prophecy. Sheridan lets it hang in the air, long and heavy, as dust swirls around the men. The lawyers leave, shaken. They came for business. They found a warning. Cammy's reaction is pure cold fire. "Then we'll dig deeper," she says, her tone calm but lethal. She's not backing down from Raymond or anyone, but there's a flash of something in her eyes: curiosity, maybe even fear. Because Raymond isn't bluffing. There's something buried in that land, something older than MexOil, older than Tommy's guilt. Tommy, caught between them, becomes the bridge and the battlefield. When Cammy confronts him about his family's claim, he tries to brush it off, saying, that land was worthless before MexOil. But Raymond's earlier words haunt him. The truth is, he knows what was done to acquire it. Papers were forged, lines were moved. The Norris family name was scrubbed off maps and deeds in exchange for oil rights. Sheridan crafts this conflict like an oil-soaked Shakespearean tragedy, sons and the ghosts of ownership colliding in a moral inferno. The land itself becomes a character, ancient, cursed, and soaked in betrayal. As the episode builds toward its final act, the stakes shift from corporate scandal to generational reckoning. MexOil isn't just fighting lawsuits, it's fighting history. Raymond's warning echoes over the final scene of the chapter: "You can cover up a grave, son, but that don't mean it's gone." By the time the dust settles, it's clear this season isn't just about oil or power. It's about inheritance, consequence, and the price of digging too deep into your own past. For a moment, it feels like the storm has passed. The investigations quiet down, the headlines fade, and MexOil begins to settle into its new order under Cammy Miller. But in true Taylor Sheridan fashion, .com is just the prelude to catastrophe. It happens late at night, out on the edge of West Texas, where the air hums with machinery and tension. The camera opens on a wide shot of MexOil's largest rig, lit against the dark sky like a steel cathedral. Workers move through their nightly routines, unaware that everything is about to go up in flames. Then comes the sound, a low, shuddering groan from deep beneath the ground. One of the men looks up, confusion in his eyes. Another yells something about pressure spikes. And then, boom! The explosion tears through the night like thunder made of fire. The screen fills with orange light and black smoke. Metal twists. Workers dive for cover. Oil shoots into the air like a geyser of death. Sheridan doesn't glorify the chaos, he lets the camera linger on the fear. The desperation, the human cost of greed. By the time Tommy Norris arrives, the site looks like a war zone. He rushes past burning pipes, shouting for survivors, covered in ash and sweat. It's a haunting parallel to his state of mind. Everything he's built, everything he's tried to control, now burning right in front of him. Cammy's PR team moves fast, issuing a statement before dawn. Equipment malfunction, no casualties, investigation pending. The headlines are clean, but the truth isn't. Tommy knows this wasn't an accident. He's seen too many rigs, too many explosions, to believe in coincidence. When he walks through the wreckage, flashlight in hand, He spots something half buried in soot, a small metal tag. Scorched but still legible. It bears the initials of someone he once trusted, a man who left MexOil under mysterious circumstances after Season 1. The moment is quiet but heavy. Sheridan's camera focuses on Tommy's trembling hand as he turns the tag over. You can almost see the realization sinking in. This wasn't just sabotage, it was personal. Later that night, Tommy sits alone in his truck, the flames still burning in his rearview mirror. His reflection flickers against the windshield, half man, half ghost. The oil burns behind him, and so does the truth he's been running from. This is Sheridan at his best, using disaster as a reflection of inner decay. The explosion isn't just a plot twist. It's a symbol, the world collapsing under the weight of its own corruption. By the time the flames die down, the cover-up has already begun. Cammy controls the headlines. Tommy controls nothing, and the one thing that could expose them both is now buried in ash, waiting to resurface. The final act of Landman Season 2, Episode 1, is all about confrontation, not of fists or weapons, but of truth and control. The chaos of the explosion ripples through the entire company, but instead of bringing people together, it draws battle lines. The camera opens on the MexOil tower at night, glass gleaming, the city lights reflecting off its walls like a mirage. Inside, in her office high above the skyline, Cammy Miller waits. The only light in the room comes from the city below and the faint glow of a single desk lamp. She's calm, composed, but her eyes tell another story. She's expecting someone. Moments later, Tommy walks in. He looks exhausted, still streaked with soot, shirt unbuttoned, eyes hollow. It's not a meeting, it's a standoff. Close the door, Cammy says softly. He does. The silence that follows is electric. Their exchange feels like the eye of a hurricane. Tommy throws the metal tag onto her desk. It clinks against the glass like a gunshot. You knew, he says. You knew someone was out there. Cammy doesn't deny it. She simply leans back, crosses her arms, and replies, "You think this was about oil? It's about control." Sheridan's dialogue cuts like a blade. There's no shouting, no theatrics, just two people weaponizing silence. Tommy leans in, voice low and rough. "Then you'd better hold on tight. Because once you start this fire, it doesn't stop." Cammy smirks the calm of someone who's already planned her next move. "Then let it burn," she says. Outside, thunder rolls. Sheridan cuts between close-ups of their faces and flashes of lightning, reflecting in the office glass like sparks waiting to ignite. Then comes one of the most cinematic transitions in the episode. As Tommy storms out, the scene cuts to Raymond Norris, Sam Elliott standing on his ranch porch, staring into the distance. The night sky glows faintly red. He's watching a flare burning in the horizon, a distant reminder of the rig fire, but also a symbol of what's to come. The music swells, a mix of low guitar and haunting strings. Over the image, we hear Cammy's voiceover, cold, deliberate, and unforgettable. The difference between surviving and ruling is who lights the match. The camera lingers on the flare one last time, its light flickering against Raymond's weathered face. Then black screen. In West Texas, the oil burns, but it's the truth that leaves the deepest scars. Landman, Season 2, Episode 1 isn't just a return, it's a reckoning. Demi Moore commands. Sam Elliott looms. And Billy Bob Thornton, he's standing in the middle of it all, waiting for the next explosion. Voiceover. This is SugarBee, where we dig deeper into every frame, every twist, and every Sheridan storm. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell me, whose side are you on? Cammy's or Tommy's?